Buddy Martin Show with you and me and Lauren Meadows.
Me,
and
Lauren.
We had your dad on there briefly from North Carolina. That was a lot of fun last night. Great show. Jake Wimberly is going to check in. Got a lot of graphics on college football. We'll also have Vince Ferrara from the Sports Animal in Knoxville, and Yancy Porter will try to check in again. Got knocked out of the signal down at Orange Beach yesterday. Ole Miss Rebel yelled hotline. Always has a lot to say. And as always, with our guests, we cover certain schools, but they're all Swiss Army knives. They can cover the SEC and the big picture of college football. Smash the subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner. Allow notifications on your Android and iPhone. And appreciate so much everybody watching this show. Your comments are, I love it. I mean, this blending of all these fan bases together, it's awesome. I absolutely love it, man. Thank you. We'll be right back. Great day ahead. Happy.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Good morning. Got Jake Wimberly in with us down in Jackson, Mississippi. ESPN 105.9, The Afternoon Drive. Executive producer Brenden Martin. And Jake, is it fair to say when you got a producer like Brenden and your producer that you have, you cannot say thank you enough? I mean, how blessed we are. And other than Christmas and Easter, the biggest day of the year, because we are free, the freest country in the world, is the 4th of July. So happy 4th of July. No show tomorrow, but we're doing a show today. But man,
screw the British.
No red coats. We got Jake Wimberly, man, down in Jackson, Mississippi, and got some graphics we're going to put up here today. But I also want to say hello to Will Hearn, listening, a rising sophomore at the University of Georgia, writing for the Georgia paper over there, covering the Dogs. We're going to start bringing on, some of these young kids that are rising journalists, and I think they're fun to have on because we need to have mentors. And here we are, J-Day, SEC, horns up, baby, hook 'em. Oh, here it goes. I love this. Jake, let's go.
Oh, it's fun. It is. And you're right. I mean, when you got great producers, I mean, you can't hey, look, the producers control the deal, right? They could cut the bloodline off and we wouldn't be on the
Look, there's two people on the planet Earth you don't piss off. Your producer and your caddy.
That's it.
And I've been both, okay? Don't piss me off.
Point taken.
Yes, sir. Here we go. All right, Jake.
It's
59
fun.
days, man. 59 days away.
Yeah. I mean, we're close. When we're getting close, and you know this. I mean, this is kind of the last little break right here coming up for the 4th of July. And then when we come back next week, I mean, it's all go. I mean, you got SEC Media Days coming up. You've got NFL camps opening up. Right now we're trying to button up everything with our high schools here for broadcasts on, our Alpha Media stations here. So it's football time.
Yeah. Well, you talk about high school football. It's still, I know there's talk about NIL and some of that stuff drifting down there, but it's still just nothing like Friday night high school football. And in the state of Mississippi, it's really big. You can be covering Rankin or Brandon.
Well, for here, just for full transparency, the way it works for me is I am the play-by-play voice for Brandon High School. It's one of the largest schools in the state. This will be my 15th year to be with the Bulldogs. And then, of course, we do a lot with the MHSA, Mississippi High School Activities Association. We carry and put together all of their state championship games for football, baseball, basketball, radio, and TV, a part of the Play on Sports Network as well. And then also with Alpha Media, we carry 4 high school football teams inside our radio block on the radio that pair radio broadcasts with live streams as well. So a lot of stuff with high school football here. It's crazy when you start thinking about not just here in the Mississippi, but other states as well. Yeah. Used to, you just, as a high schooler, you'd want your name in the paper, and now you've got, magazines and coverage. And I mean, it's a miniature version of the college game.
It really is. Jake, let's get into the graphics. I mean, I know we'll need to give Brenden a little cues up, but let's go to your first category. That'll give him time to put that up there and start from there.
Yeah, the first thing I want to do is I want to look at the strength of schedule numbers in the SEC. I sent 3 graphics. We're going to look at strength of schedule today, also offensive and defensive scoring efficiency and why that's important. And then, what I have as my final playoff rankings going into to the actual playoff, but more so to show kind of like, how this thing could look as far as, pandemonium at the end of the season. First, my strength of schedule numbers, of course, the number on the right is the overall strength of schedule. That's just a combined composite number. This is going to mirror a lot of your other strength of schedules that you see out there. Florida, by far the hardest strength of schedule in the Southeastern Conference and the country. Georgia right there at number 2, Oklahoma 3, Mississippi State 4, and Arkansas 5. And strength of schedule, as we know, is very, very important because if you take Missouri, for instance, at the bottom of this thing, a very manageable schedule. A lot of people like Missouri to make the college football playoff, Texas as well, and then Ole Miss. Those are 3 teams a lot of people feel like have a shot. If you took that Florida football team and switch them with Missouri, I'm not so sure that you wouldn't see, different outlooks and outcomes for Florida versus Missouri. So just to kind of give you a taste of where I see, the numbers as far as strength of schedule, for instance, you take an Auburn team down there at 11, I like Auburn to get 8 or 9 wins this year. I think Hugh Freeze has a pretty good year too. Tennessee, I'm real big on Tennessee. And, some of the teams that I have in the college football playoff out of the Southeastern Conference, I do have Tennessee there. I have Ole Miss there. I have Texas there. And a lot of that is to do with the strength of schedule. And as I always say, guys, never apologize for your schedule maybe not being as tough as some others.
Exactly. And these numbers are funny because a few weeks ago I saw a strength of schedule and 9 of the top 10 in America were SEC schools, and they had Auburn a lot higher on that list, like at 3 or 4. And I was like, I don't think the schedule, most Auburn people will tell you this is one of the easier schedules for the Tigers in a long time. But I want to get back to the Georgia. Franz Beard wrote some great stuff at GatorbaitMedia.com here yesterday about the Dogs and their struggles on the road against these elite teams. You go back to the Alabama game in 2020, close game at the half. Stetson Bennett, that's when there was controversy. Who would be the quarterback? Didn't work out. Alabama won big, like 41-20 or 41-24. They struggled on the road with Kirby at LSU, I think in 2018. They were number 1 on the road in 2017, lost at Auburn 40-17. But that was then. Now Georgia is like a great white shark on steroids. Let's talk about them and those daunting road games and the Clemson games in Atlanta. But I'll tell you, this. I spend a lot of time in Atlanta. Our oldest daughter lives there. Clemson and Auburn consider Atlanta a home game too.
Oh, they do. And what's interesting is right now Georgia, I believe, is somewhere around a 13 to 13.5 point favorite in that Clemson game out the gate. We're going to find out a lot in that ball game, right? I mean, we're going to find out, because a lot of your pundits have Clemson, Clemson's back, and I don't know where. Look, Clemson's a really good football team, and I know we're not talking necessarily ACC football today.
No, let's do it. Yeah, it matters.
Yeah, I mean, they're a top 10 recruiter still. Cade Klubnik, again, is to me a very average quarterback. And to me, I think this points to, when Dabo Swinney lost, Tony Elliott to Virginia, and then, of course, he lost Brent Venables to Oklahoma. It's just like he's never been able to recover from a coordinator standpoint. And it starts going, so you saw DJ Uiagalelei struggle. He left. He went to Oregon State, not Florida State. If Klubnik struggles again, then you got to start asking, hey, what's going on inside the program? Because this is a Clemson team that used to, just a few short years ago, they averaged 41.5 points a game when they had Trevor Lawrence and some of those guys coming through there. But we'll find out a lot about both of those teams back to Georgia. If Georgia goes out and has no problem and covers that 13.5, then it's, it's game on for Georgia. You kind of creep through here, a week 3 game at Kentucky. And then after a bye week, you referenced at Alabama. They also have to go to Texas, at Ole Miss, and then, of course, they'll host Tennessee. They'll play Florida, neutral site ball game. So this is one of the tougher schedules that we've seen for Kirby Smart. I still have them winning 11 ball games. I have them winning the Southeastern Conference. I do have them losing to Texas on the road. But, again, it'll be interesting to see how Georgia plays in some of these big road games.
tectonic plates. We talk about this all the time. What happens in the SEC, ACC, there's a lot of reverberation. So always feel free to invoke whatever, because Georgia and Clemson play August 31st at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. I go back and I'll draw some parallels. Bobby Bowden, when he lost Chuck Amato to NC State to be their head coach, and when he lost Mark Richt to Georgia after the 2000 season, they never really recovered. Jimbo was the coach in waiting, which was a disaster. You had coach in waiting around the country. That went away. The free market corrected that. So I'm looking at Dabo. He's double dog dare down on the portal and all that stuff. And I understand it, but Cade Klubnik last year had 9 picks at quarterback. Clemson's won 28 games the last 3 seasons. They were, think about this, 2015, 2016, 2018, and 2019. 4 out of 5 years, they played for the national championship. And here we are having questions. It just goes to show you how fleeting fame and fortune are, aren't they?
Oh, it can leave you in a heartbeat. I mean, that's just like we joke about it, but it's not a joke. Is, a lot of Alabama fans that are 35 and under, they don't remember the 90s. I know we do, right? I mean, we very
fondness.
Alabama Alabama teams that went through there. Oklahoma. I mean, they've wandered in the wilderness. Just because you're a power today doesn't mean that you're always going to be a power. And speaking of the coach in waiting, I don't know if you saw it or not, but interesting that you brought that up about how that kind of went away. Utah just named their defensive coordinator as the kind of coach in waiting, which I haven't seen that in quite some time. And I thought the same thing, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see with Clemson and again for Georgia, how they play on the road, because Georgia's not sneaking up on anybody, but they do have the best, one of, if not the best roster in football.
Well, college football is a lot like the movie Trading Places. Remember at the end of Trading Places when Randolph and Mortimer Duke got wiped off the map? A margin call. We need $365 million. We don't have $365 million. Put all assets of Duke and Duke Commodities up for sale. And that was the end of them until they had a little bit of a dead cat bounce comeback in the movie Coming to America with Eddie Murphy when the 2 guys on the street, the 2 bums, they threw some money to him. It was Randolph and Mortimer Duke. He goes, Mortimer, we're back in business. That's kind of how you feel in college football. Ask Gene Chizik. 2 years after winning it all, he presides over the worst Auburn football team in 62 years when they lost to Wofford and went 0-10 in 1950 before they brought in Shug Jordan. All right, let's think about Cade Klubnik. He's a 5-star. DJ was a 5-star out of Concordia, California. Wow. He's been to Clemson, Oregon State, now at Florida State. But I'll tell you one, I brought this up last night on the Buddy Martin show. The number 123rd ranked running back. This will tell you how great high school football is in the state of Mississippi. Per capita, they put more players in the NFL than any other state in America. There's 50 states, people. There was a kid in 2017, 2018 who lived out in the country in Yazoo City, Mississippi, home of Jerry Clower. Son, Maurice Ledbetter. Think about it. Kenneth Gainwell, who signed with Memphis. Do you remember that kid coming out of high school? The number 123rd ranked running back in America. How'd that turn out? Over 1,400 yards on a really good Mike Norvell Memphis team as a freshman. You see a lot of high school football. You know your boots on the ground. Let's talk about high school football and recruiting and how much this stuff matters. But we'll get to that. But I know you got a couple of more charts. I want to get to those because that strength of schedule stuff is really, really revealing.
It is. Let's go to the offensive, defensive scoring efficiency numbers, and I'll tell you why I want to look at that. We've talked a little bit about that. This is, obviously last year. It's kind of a composite over the last couple of years. Now, wow. This is a stat that is going to change kind of year to year now, especially because for instance, you take LSU last year, their offense was number 1 in the country. Well, is it going to really be number 1 in the country this year because you lose the Heisman Trophy quarterback, you lose Malik Neighbors and others, but the reason these numbers are important, especially when you start talking about college football playoff, and I might have said this on this show before, so I can't remember, is that, if you go back and do the math, especially with a 4-team playoff, now this number it's going to be interesting to see how this moves to the 12-team. to get into the 14 playoff, you typically had to have an offensive number that's going to sit around 15 and in, in the country. Defensive about the same way, 15 and in. If you go look at some of the numbers from last year, Michigan was number one on defense and like number 3 on offense. So you take Alabama last year, 18th offensively, just right outside that number, 9 defensively. They made the college football playoff. You look at Texas last year, 17th offensively, 8 defensively, right outside that offensive number, good enough to get in. That defense is there as well. So what does this tell you? So for instance, LSU, to make the 4-team playoff, number 1 in the offense, 106 in defense, no chance in the world of making the playoff with a defensive number like that. Look at Oklahoma last year, 9th and 11th, and they were a 10-win ball team. They were right there last year. So these are some numbers where, you can kind of always say this is kind of your college football stock market watch meter. If you really want to see what teams are doing, especially if they get to 6-0, 7-0, how good are they offensively and defensively, and scoring efficiency will tell you a lot. Some other numbers in here, if you look at it, for instance, Tennessee, 23rd and 21, they're kind of right there on the outside of that number where they need to be. If they can move that needle just a little bit, then they're going to be really, really good. Look at Missouri, 11 and 18. They're right there inside the numbers you needed to be. They were a New Year's 6-day bowl team. So those numbers matter. Now, Ole Miss, 13 and 32 in offense and defensive scoring efficiency. Yeah. Offensively there, defensively, they've got some work to do, because what you may find is if Ole Miss hasn't found the pieces defensively, they could possibly have a loss or two in a shootout ball game that might cost them. They may still have a great year, but it may cost them a playoff spot. So it's just numbers to follow as we move along with our efficiency numbers.
Well, you think about LSU, Ole Miss last year, 55-49. Ole Miss doesn't want to get into 2 or 3 of those kind of games this year. They won that one. But what I look at on these rankings, this is really, again, this says everything. These are national rankings. LSU, as Frank Duffy said, wasted a generational talent at quarterback, Heisman Trophy winner Jaden Daniels, with a historically, generationally bad defense under Matt House. They went and took away Missouri's defensive coordinator. That may be the most anyone's ever paid for a coordinator, at least on defense. But let's talk about that hire by LSU and Missouri. People are afraid to stick their neck out and say good things about Missouri. But you look, Brady Cook is back, Luther Burden III. Now, they don't have the great running back. Cody Schrader came from Division II. He's gone, but it almost makes you think there's a little Bobby Beathard out there in some of these guys evaluating talent to find a Kenneth Gainwell as the number 123 running back in the country and Cody Schrader as a D2 guy. And we talked about it on the show. Look, Charlie Condon, who was, won the Golden Spikes Award at Georgia this year, was on his way to Rhodes College in Memphis to play football and basketball and baseball, whatever they wanted him to play. There's always going to be people like that. And, God, those numbers that you put up. I go back and watch all these shows like Coaches, and I break them down, and I take pictures of stuff like this and always give you credit. But let's get to the next category because that says it all.
Yeah, let's look at the final thing, and this is just what I have projected, and feel free to rip this apart. The final rankings after the championship weekend and who gets in the playoff. And the reason I want to put this up is because I want you to see how close this could get and how convoluted. Now, people are going to look at that Miami 13-0 up there and go, what in the world? Get this guy off your show, Rob. Don't ever bring him back. He's an absolute run, and that is fine. Miami, at least schedule-wise, as you see the number, the SOS, they have the easiest schedule of just about anybody in the country outside of that has a shot. In the Big Four, in the Power Four, their schedule is very manageable. Now, if they can't do it this year with all the players that they have one of the best rosters in the ACC. They probably won't go 13-0. But for the sake of this argument, let's just say they are number 1 in the playoff rankings. Georgia at number 2, they win the SEC at 12-1. Ohio State wins the Big Ten at 12-1. You've got Texas as a runner-up. You've got now the media loves Utah and Kansas State, and rightfully so. I like Central Florida. I like KJ Jefferson being down there. I like the roster Gus Malzahn has. We'll see how that whole league plays out. But just for fun, Rob, you see how congested this thing could get with Tennessee at 10-2, Penn State 10-2, Clemson 10-2. You get a lot of 9-3s. I think you're going to have a lot of 9-3s and a lot of 10-2s. And one of the things that's not on this list is your group of 5 champion that will be in this playoff. Is it going to be Liberty? Is it going to be someone like, a Boise State or maybe a Memphis? And look, if Notre Dame gets to 11-1, or if they get to 10-2, Notre Dame is in this playoff every single year. Yeah. So, you've got some really good SEC teams and then maybe even some ACC teams. For instance, if Clemson's at 10-2 and Tennessee's at 10-2, who are they really going to take? I mean, it's going to come down to, obviously, are they really going to look at strength of schedule? Are they going to want to try to balance this thing out? But as you see, I mean, it's this picking just 12 is not going to be as simple as picking just 12.
No, and what makes it so much fun is 13 and 14 should have been put in. And when we go to a 14-team playoff in a couple of years, it's going to be 15 and 16. That we got to also be careful of not having 32 or 64 in college. Then, I mean, that's absolute insanity. You have to shrink the regular season to make that happen, because we're already with a 12-team playoff going to have some team out there could possibly play 17 games. Now, we've got teams that have played 15. That's happened. But this is where walk-ons and numbers and depth matter. Tonight, Jake, when Tyler Siskey was on the show a couple of weeks ago, and again, he's coached at Ole Miss and Alabama, and he's coached at a lot of places. Tyler pointed something out, and I brought this up last night on the Buddy Martin show, which is live Monday through Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern. He said in the past, the SEC could stack up 2 and 3 deep on both sides of the ball. Those front sevens, 2 and 3 deep, just really, really hard to deal with. So now those guys aren't staying around like they used to. They're punching the portal button. And that's the great equalizer for college football around the country. And you mentioned Memphis with Mike Silverfield. And then he's got Seth Hennigan, who's got the best numbers of any quarterback who's a senior, he stayed at the same school the entire time. He's a coach's son, a high school product from Texas. And you look at Dylan Gabriel, he's just shy already of 15,000 yards passing. Oklahoma will be starting Jackson Arnold this year, who is the highest rated offensive recruit in school history. So that's powerful. I want to ask you, okay, when I look around the SEC, talk about Arkansas, Sam Pittman, everyone likes him, but my Hog fans are going, man, I want the coach everybody can't stand because he beats them. And he's got Bobby Petrino there, and he's going to be just having to give everything to Bobby Petrino. Their defense with Travis Williams and Marcus Woodson, they've got some good coaches. What do you think is going to happen with Arkansas, and how does this season play out?
Well, I mean, I've got Arkansas with right around 3 or 4 wins, but it's all going to be, depend on, like you said, what does Bobby Petrino do? Now, let's remember this. Last year, Bobby Petrino improved Texas A&M at about a touchdown per game on offense. Yeah. Arkansas averaged right around 27 points per game last year. They gave up about 28. That's why you see kind of this, anytime you get where your offense is averaging almost what your defense is, you're either going to be a 6-6 team or you're going to be, kind of flounder under that.
Yeah.
They really like the quarterback. At least, of course, Dudley Dawson would tell you this better than me, but they really like the quarterback out of Boise. They've got some wide receivers that they like. You're going to see them throw it around. It's going to be very reminiscent of the last time Bobby Petrino was there. Now, will it be as good as the last time they're there? That's the question. How much time will they get? So, this, if you go back and look at Arkansas' schedule, and again, I'm just going to pan back. I know you can't see it, but I'm over here on my grid now. That week 2 ball game against Oklahoma State is going to tell you a lot. The fact that they've got to go on the road to Stillwater and play Oklahoma State, a team that is going to be one of the favorites or is one of the favorites to possibly win the Big 12. If they get that win, and then, of course, they'll have UAB, they'll be 3-0 with a shot going to Auburn. But that schedule really gets tough when you're talking about Auburn on the road, Texas A&M, Tennessee, a bye week, and then LSU. So, that second week ball game against Oklahoma State is very pivotal for them.
It really is. I got to think, too, when Bobby Petrino was there, 2010, 2011, and then April of 2012, they were on the cusp of doing something really big. They'd won 21 games the previous 2 seasons. And then obviously we know the wheels fell off. Talent-wise, that they've now got to deal with Texas, Oklahoma, which despite having a common border with the state of Oklahoma, they've only played like 15 times in 130 plus years of college football. They can't make that rivalry with Missouri a rivalry, but I can't help but think if things don't go well for Arkansas and they make a change and get rid of Sam Pittman, that they go straight north to Columbia, northeast, and make a power grab with a Brinks truck full of money for Eli Drinkwitz, who's from Alma, which is right on I-40 by Fort Smith and the Fayetteville exit, and go try to get him. What about that? That would really shake things up because I don't know who Missouri's going to go get, and he seems like a good fit at Missouri.
No, he does.
I'm speculating.
Look,
that's all I'm doing.
Oh, sure, absolutely. And look, there's no doubt about it. I mean, if you had to put one coach in the Southeastern Conference that has the hottest seat, it would probably be Sam Pittman this year. And then go, Billy Napier 2. We'll see what happens at Florida. But and Billy Napier may not be on the hot seat. Now, I think if the thing flames out for him, it could be. But Sam Pittman definitely the number one coach on the hot seat. So, I think going to maybe try to get, you got to ask yourself, if Missouri punches a ticket to the playoff, does Eli Drinkwitz feel like he can really build a sustainable power at Missouri, or would he go to, stay in the conference and move to a place like Arkansas, or maybe does he get a shot, in another conference that, gets him, a little better leg up? Because I have, one thing about Missouri, it's hard to figure out is what is their commitment NIL wise, their collective wise. It seems like it's there, but are they really wanting to play ball? For instance, Ole Miss, they want to play ball. You look at what the Grove Collective's doing. You look at everything that's out there. Does Missouri really want to play ball long term? And is that where Eli Drinkwitz wants to stay?
Yeah, and Dennis Dodd said on the show a couple of weeks ago they're putting $250 million into renovating just one of the end zones. It's probably where all the rocks are down on the end. But they had some stuff happen at the school a decade ago, whatever, and enrollment in that freshman class dropped 50%. They've had to overcome some stuff. And when you win, it attracts students. It's flypaper, man. When you're not, it's don't tell me football doesn't matter. It is, as everybody says, it's your front porch. You got any other graphs or charts we want to pull up and get to? Because I got a couple of more questions for you. Because the day before the 4th of July, there are going to be a lot of people at the river, the lake, down on the Gulf Coast, not the ocean, folks. It's not the ocean. It's the Gulf. They're going to be talking some football, drinking cold beer, and maybe having a little Traveler's whiskey from Buffalo Trace that Chris Stapleton is pushing that I gave to my man Donnie Raines.
No more graphs today. I did 3 today, but hey, we'll answer any questions. I got a couple minutes left here on my time here. So anything you want to discuss, feel free to discuss. If you want to tear apart Miami, we can tear apart any of the picks that I have out there.
Hey, I want to ask you about Florida with Billy Napier.
Sure.
You go back and you look. You've got to give coaches time. They wouldn't be there if the guy before him did such a great job. Dan Mullen was the perfect fit at the right time at Mississippi State because he knew how to develop players. He won like 8 games a year in his 9 years there. Billy Napier, does he need to win 7 or does he need to be competitive in every game? Because if they get off to a good start, 5-1, 6-0, I can't help but think psychologically they're going to think they can beat those last 5 teams, which in the history of college football, that's a gauntlet. But that's assuming they're going to be as good as everybody says they are, and everybody doesn't come down with a case of logo fever, as Roman Harper calls it.
Look, that week 1 game against Miami is so pivotal. I mean, for both programs. It's pivotal for Billy Napier because you've got an in-state rival coming into your house to play a football game. It's going to be, I haven't looked at the spread in a while. I'm sure that's going to be under a 5-point spread one way or the other. You've got Miami, who, again, as I referenced, roster-wise, they're pound for pound as good as Clemson and Florida State in the ACC. They've got the quarterback that they wanted in Cam Ward. This is a big year for Mario Cristobal, who is basically a 500 coach for the history of his life. He literally has won as many as he has lost. If Florida can get that win, that is a huge springboard into the season where they'll beat Samford in week 2 and then host Texas A&M. If they lose to Miami and then turn around and lose again to Texas A&M, that week 4 game at Mississippi State, now hear me out here, is extremely pivotal for Billy Napier because that could be the linchpin to swing his stay there So the first 4 weeks, if they lose to Mississippi State and start out 1-3, then this thing could really go off the rails for him. However, if he gets to 4-0 and gets to the break before they host Central Florida, then Billy Napier, you can start talking about Coach of the Year award in the SEC, because this schedule is literally that tough.
Yeah, it is in that last 5 with LSU, Georgia, Texas, Ole Miss, and Florida State. Again, Ole Miss has got to go down there November 23rd. That's going to be tough. I want to ask you about Mississippi State. Why does everybody always try to make a fight and that there's problems for anyone that's ever been around Lane Kiffin? He worked with Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss. They had a lot of success on offense. Jeff Lebby goes to Oklahoma with Brent Venables after being at Clemson for 10 years. Brent Venables I'm talking about. Jeff Lebby's been kind of quiet, but there's a number 1 running back in America. Let's talk about him. He's back in play, and Mississippi State's one of those schools. Jeff Lebby is the son-in-law of former Baylor coach Art Briles. He's an offensive savant. I mean, he's that good. But let's talk about what's happening down on the junction in Starkville, Mississippi.
Well, right now, a lot of good recruiting, at least just in regards to Mississippi State. Now, you're not going to, confuse their class with Georgia or, Ohio State. But, he is really putting together a heck of a class this year. And, he's attracting a lot of these young guys. And, you referenced his relationship with Lane Kiffin. I think it's fine. I think some of that is, you get people inside that they want to see this rival, right? It's State Ole Miss, it's the Egg Bowl. Leach and Kiffin never had that. It was always very cordial. Kiffin is, and we know this, he's not a mudslinger. He's kind of a, hey, I'm going to get you with a catty comment. I'm going to get you, with a kind of a, behind the scenes comment. He's not a guy like that. So I don't think you're still, even with Jeff Lebby there, you're going to see these two verbally get after each other in the media. Now, you could eventually in the next year or two see them really get after each other on the football field as far as points scored. But for Jeff Lebby and what he's done, at least so far on the recruiting trail, it's been a heck of a run this summer. It's just for them this year, they're going to have to score the football, and then they're going to have to make this an exciting brand of football. I feel like they will, and continue to, recruit for the future, play for the future, and put, just a fun product on the field. And I think if he can do that, I think those players will come to Starkville. Yeah.
I've always noticed, and spending a lot of time in Mississippi, the rural kids, and there's a lot of them, small towns, they love Mississippi State. It's an ag, it's engineering, it's architecture, veterinary medicine, but they do really well in state. And an in-state kid, a lot of times, most of the time, the last thing on his mind is ever quitting, because it's hard to go back home the rest of your life. What happened to you? You quit when you were a sophomore. You don't want to do that. Hey, I know you stayed long. You're so good. We can't help it. It's like Elvis, has left the building. But when you come on, let's do it again next week. Tell people how they can follow you and the app so they can listen to your show every afternoon, 3 to 6 in Jackson.
Yeah, you can listen to the show 3 to 6 every day. Of course, we'll be off tomorrow and Friday, for the 4th of July. But you can just go to thezone1059.com and hit the play button, or you can find WRKS. That's the call station letters. You can, find that on Apple, on the iHeartRadio app, also the TuneIn Radio app, Spotify, and more. And, of course, hit me up on X. That's @JakeWim. And of course, Rob, I appreciate you guys as always. And I hope y'all have a great 4th. And we get back next week, it'll be go time.
Oh, absolutely, man. It's going to be here before we know it. Happy 4th of July to you as well. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, guys.
You bet. I know that it is the day before the 4th of July. Vince said that he will be on momentarily. They had a technical issue that they're working on at the station up in Knoxville, and we'll get with him. But Brenden, we follow through from last night, and we'll be getting into it again tonight. You talk about first games, how pivotal they are. And Florida's had the tale of two cities, as Charles Dickens wrote. The first game when Billy Napier was there, that win over Utah was ginormous. Last year, the loss at Utah was ginormous.
Yeah, the win over Utah was ginormous at home.
Yeah.
You had AR. And that's what I keep telling people. Not that I'm a hater. I'm just saying, look, Billy had a pretty good quarterback in AR and pretty good squad when he walked in there. And that was a great win at home against Utah. You thought that really set the tone. But, it just has sort of been downhill since that game in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it has.
It really has. That was so much talk and hype, and we'll bring in Yancy Porter, but there's so much talk and hype about that. You can't hang it on one guy. Like Florida, we've said this all along. Florida's problem is in the last 15 years or whatever it's been firing and hiring of coaches too quickly.
Yeah.
We are in that byproduct right now. And, I think people say, and Franz Beard will tell you, as day is long, people say Billy's on the hot seat. Billy is not on the hot seat.
I don't think he is.
He's not on the hot seat at all. He will be here through the end of this year, no matter what happens. Yeah. He's got a contract. I think even if he left now, there'd be $30-some million left to pay him out. So
with that,
he's not going anywhere.
Yeah. With the House settlement coming up, as Tyler Siskey said, there are going to be a lot of patient athletic directors out there going forward. Jimbo would still be at A&M with that $20 to $30 million settlement coming up. Yancy Porter, Orange Beach, Alabama, probably at Doc's Seafood, having some grits and grillade down there right now. How you doing, man? Rebel Yell Hotline Monday nights, 6 p.m. Central, Sports 56 WHBQ in Memphis, and Super Talk Mississippi. And I was listening yesterday. Ole Miss had a couple of guys decommit, but in today's world, that's as common as it was 30 years ago, isn't it?
Yeah, you talking about the football program?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when you're recruiting at a high level like that, and the highly ranked players, they're going to be pulled on all kind of different directions, and I mean that's just part of the game.
Well, when you think about it, when a high-profile recruit commits in today's environment that we're in, he's basically saying, okay, here's my price. And I mean, people are going to know what it costs to get them. So it's like, okay, right now you can get me for X dollars. And then what are other people willing to pay? But what I think will make people a little bit at ease, their nerves at least, is that there's only so many people out there that will throw money at 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds. You heard what Charles Barkley said about NIL. He goes, I'll give money to my school every day, but I ain't giving a nickel to NIL. He doesn't believe in it. So that's what I call the free market, Yancy. But the Grove Collective is, 11,000 plus and growing, as they say down in the Delta, every day, including Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a trendsetter for sure. They've done an outstanding job, as well as the coaches have done, particularly, Beard and Kiffin in this transfer NIL era. They could have done it without the Grove Collective, that's for sure. But, when you look at the couple decommitments they had, I think, the big one there, Keelan Deere, celebrated the number one running back in the country out of Quitman, Mississippi. Regardless of what happens, Alabama's seems to be trending right now, but I still think in the end, come Saturday, there's too many Ole Miss people in this network. I think he'll be a rebel when it's all said and done.
I'm going to stick with that one too. I want to ask you something about the money. People, what we try to do on this show is peel back the and show the truth, put the light, shed light on the truth. I know when Dickie Scruggs was the lead attorney in the tobacco lawyer settlement on the Gulf Coast, his take, I think, was like $700 million. An attorney told me this, who lived in Oxford. There were 14 other attorneys that won with him. They had to invest, but they won. I would guess there are billions of dollars floating around out there among Ole Miss alumni or graduates of the law school that were and still are close friends with Mr. Scruggs. I spent a lot of time in the Delta, a 20 or 30,000 acre cotton farm, 10,000 acres, whatever. There's a lot of money there. There's the number 3 ranked accounting school in America, pharmacy, business, law school. Ole Miss has some pretty strong alumni. Let's go back over the numbers. You said their capital campaign, they just finished this last year, was $1.5 billion for academics at Ole Miss and $500 million for athletics. What were the final numbers on that? Because, again, people, need to stop the, Mississippi, listen, 2.8 million people in that state, Arkansas about 2.8 million. There's some serious money that Ole Miss and Mississippi State too have and are willing to commit. But, not everybody's going to just go out and say, hey, here's $1 million for 25 kids in the class. Kind of put it in perspective. And then we've got Vince Ferrara from the Sports Animal in Knoxville going to join in this conversation the day before Independence Day, people, the freest country in the world, because we are the freest people.
Yeah, but when the forefathers set up the universities, it was the flagship university there in Mississippi. And let's be, honest, Ole Miss was set up with the money program, so they're going to have alumni that make money. You just went over it. They got the medical center, they've got the law school, they got the business school, they've got the programs that are set up to make money. So naturally, they're going to have plenty of alumni that have money.
Yeah. It's just, to me, we just connect the dots, but I think that running back ends up there. Vince Ferrara, Sports Animal, still celebrating up there. And winning a national championship in any sport is big. Now those baseball players have gone all over the country, the Cape Cod League and the Southern League, everywhere. But we're talking a little college football. It's the day before the 4th of July. What's happening in Knoxville right now in football recruiting alone? Let's be specific about the Vols and who they're likely to pick up next. I know it's a dead period, but there's still chatter.
Yeah, good to be on with you guys. And you're right. This is the month where you cash in on the work in June. And the analysts that cover recruiting on a daily basis in much more detail than probably we do, or at least I do, they talked about how important the month of June was. Tennessee had pretty much double-digit official visits almost every weekend. One weekend they had 25 guys and 6 5-stars on campus in one weekend. So they're really getting a lot of guys on campus. So they had a stretch after their last commit where they had 5 commits in 9 days. So they still 16 is not the biggest number out of all those. They're in the low teens in terms of team rankings on the different services, but there's still a lot of 4 and 5 stars that are on the table that a number of them are going to make decisions in July. That's kind of the thing with kids now is going into the season, a lot of the top prospects don't want to fuss with recruiting during their season, and they want it done. Honestly, the high school coaches want that too. They don't want kids having going on having a trip planned on a Sunday, or on a Saturday after a Friday game, where maybe his focus isn't on the game as much because he knows he's got a big visit to a school. So a lot of these decisions will be made in July off of the work in June. And Tennessee's still in the mix for a couple of 5-star offensive linemen. David Sanders Jr. is probably the biggest of that group. Everybody wants him, one of the top players in that 2025 class from that Charlotte area, Providence Day. And then Josh Petty's another 5-star offensive lineman that Tennessee is in the mix for also. There's several others. 5-star Jamie French is on a lot of people's boards, but he visits places and then says like they're gaining ground or whatever. So we'll see how that works. But DBs and defensive linemen, a lot of positions that Tennessee needs some help. But offensive line, I'd say, is the biggest thing. And then a 2026 quarterback in Faison Brenden. Looks like he listed a Final Four, and Tennessee is one of those Final Four. But a lot of people think, and we had Ryan Callahan from Go Vols 24/7 on. He filled in for John this morning. He was taking some vacation days, and he said he thinks right now with Alabama making a move, it's Tennessee, Alabama coming down to that battle. But Vols holding their own and just cashing in on some of these. Bunch of July decisions are going to happen to see if they pay off the work that they put in June and before.
Well, I want to say hello to 2 people watching the show. You won't believe this. Cousin Mark Ham, Audrey's cousin Mark, big Tennessee fan I tell you about all the time, sent me pictures yesterday, Yancy and Vince, with him, and he's at a cooking class for a couple of days over in Firenze, Florence, Italy,
Wow.
with the Dolce Vita, where the Punta. It's just incredible. And guess who he's in the class with? Remember Gino Torretta won the Heisman Trophy, man. And so Gino is going to come on this show. So I'm excited. It's going to be fun. And how you doing? And then he said he's having a ball. He's talking Vols. Mark was on the bridge there in Florence and yelling "Go Vols, Vol for life." So it's thank you for listening. Previously, our furthest listener was Robert Weaver in Peace River in Alberta, up there, 42 hours from Memphis. So, Markham, congratulations. Yancy, you heard what he just said about the visits and recruiting. We hear so much about the portal with Lane Kiffin, but I got to say this. Judy'sPoundCakes.com, by the way. I'm going to pound this into your heads. Go to the website, Judy, Judy, poundcake.com. They got 10 different kinds to order. It's a new brand out there. I'll tell you more about it, but I'm going to pound this one. Lane Kiffin also in high school, they're bringing in kids every weekend. Who's kind of pulling the strings as the recruiting coordinator at Ole Miss? Because you heard what he just said about Tennessee. That's stronger than 50 acres of fresh cut onions, what I just heard.
Yeah, really. I mean, it's kind of a group effort. The one that I've really been impressed with is their defensive line coach there, Joyner, that came over from Ohio State years back. Was at SMU as well. He's done an outstanding job, and as a whole, it's not one or two assistants that are really kind of pulling in most of the guys there. It's kind of a joint effort. So it's and Ole Miss does it different. We know that they rely on the portal more than probably 90% of the colleges out there. So it's a joint effort. I believe they got 10, 11 commitments right now. As he was talking about in June, they were bringing in 10, 15 players a weekend all throughout June. They got the big Juice Fest that comes up, I believe, on July the 22nd or 23rd. One last big weekend where they bring in a ton of their top prospects. They got down in the low teens as far as rankings. They lost some big guys there, as you referred to in the last week. One of them, Keelan Deere, the number one running back in this class of 25, I suspect, regardless if he commits to Alabama shortly or not, he'll end up at Ole Miss in the end. They're going after the quarterback out of George County who won the Elite 11 there. They're in on a lot of big guys, but Lane just, he has his own little system. He kind of likes a lot of guys to have some experience and kind of already made their hay, so to speak, before they come to Ole Miss out of that portal. So he does it a little bit differently.
Yeah, I mean, my wife Audrey goes, I love babies, but I like them when they're old enough to walk. She goes, they make me nervous when I'm holding them, and I heard a story one time. My mother and one of her friends went to go see a friend of theirs' baby, and they were with one of them's mother, and the baby, was born looking kind of rough. And said, how did the baby look? Said his ears were certainly close to his head. That's all she could come up with to say. I don't know how you take that. Ears close to his head. But Vince, you heard what Yancy said. The dead period. Is this now? We used to be, I think, June 12th to the 26th. Now it's the whole month of, basically until about the 27th of July. But they still got to go to media days. Is that why we see these coaches kind of come in on a private jet and then get out as fast as they can? They've got obligations, but have you had a chance to sit down and talk to Josh Heupel this summer? Go out to his lake house and hang out with him?
No, definitely not that, although they are working on getting him on the show. And I don't know if it'll happen before media days or afterwards, or if media days will replace it. Since we're on so early, I don't think they're going to be roaming around Radio Row. So there'll be local opportunities for us. So we'll probably get them at some point during the summer, but definitely haven't gotten that invite. I'm waiting with bated breath for that invite. But look, it's kind of, the whole dead period for July. With these kids making decisions, there's communication. I mean, just because they're not initiating or they're not on the road, doesn't mean they're just putting their feet up and then doing nothing. You mentioned media days for Hypo and a couple of the players, but when a lot of these kids are making their decisions during the dead period, guess what? You're still recruiting. So it is by far not a time off month for these guys. Does it slow down in terms of travel and initiating? Yes, but there's so many ways to communicate with these kids. And if they call you to tell you they're announcing, then you're still recruiting. So it never ends for those guys. But Yancy was talking about the philosophy of Ole Miss. I think Tennessee is similar in that it is a group effort. It's not, all right, this is the lead guy. He's got, a third of all the commits, and then everybody else fills in. Rodney Garner is the highest rated on 24/7, does a great job with recruiter rankings. Rodney Garner is the highest there at number 15. He's got 4, but they're all guys on the defensive line, including 3 4-stars. So he is, if there was a hot name for Tennessee staff, it's Rodney Garner. And he's also coaching the strength of this football team for this year as well, on a very deep defensive line with a potential top draft pick in James Pierce Jr. So things are going really well for Rodney Garner, and he's trying to set up those pieces for the future where they're going to lose some guys after this year for sure.
Yeah, and he's had 41 of his players that he's coached over the years go into the NFL. 41 for the man from Leeds, Alabama, Charles Barkley's cousin. Yancy Porter and Vince, I'm going to go do some rapid fire. Vince is frozen there on the screen. And I thought he was just staring at me, giving me the poker face, but he's frozen.
I'm here now.
Okay. All right. But Yancy, this is great stuff. I want to ask both of y'all back and forth. Y'all saw the Texas 4-hour SEC network party Sunday night. You saw the Oklahoma 4-hour party Monday from Norman. What was going on in your mind? Which fan base impressed you the most with how they showed out?
I didn't watch either one of them, to be honest.
There you go. That's a statement right there.
I mean, we're down here on vacation.
Okay.
Watching fans from other schools celebrate joining the conference really went high on my priority list. But look, they're both going to bring a lot to the SEC. Now you got the Big Ten. That seems like they're trying to get to 40 schools or something ridiculous. I hope the SEC doesn't follow suit. I like it where it is now at 16. I hope they don't chase the cat, so to speak, and get to 2022. But I like the footprint the SEC has right now. I don't think they need any more expansion. I think Texas and Oklahoma are great fits. I think the rest of the SEC is excited about both those teams coming in, and I know a lot of programs. Ole Miss gets to play Oklahoma this year. I don't know the Tennessee. I'm sure they play one of those two teams as well this year.
Yeah, at Oklahoma, that's Oklahoma's first SEC game. Is they welcome in former quarterback Josh Heupel in Tennessee to Norman to start SEC play. So that's the one newcomer that Tennessee plays this year.
So both Tennessee and Ole Miss play Oklahoma, but Texas will be on the schedule. Ole Miss got to play Texas a couple times in this last decade, so that newness will not be there. But certainly will be welcome. I always thought that Texas and Ole Miss would face each other. This year with the Arch Manning deal there being at Texas there, but Arch and yours is going to be the starter there. So maybe that'll happen coming up in a couple years. But, everybody's excited about coming in. But, no, I did not watch a pep rally for either school about joining the SEC. What did you think, Rob?
I thought the crowd there in Norman was like a Norman Rockwell painting. Just it was Gaylord Family Stadium says it all. In Texas, it was just ginormous there at the state capitol. But I think both fan bases are bouncing off the wall to get into this league. I really liked it. I thought it was powerful stuff. And Greg Sankey even got excited. He's pretty stoic normally. He's got to be, but he was excited. I got an idea, Vince. I'm gonna throw this at both of y'all. And we're about to wrap it up. If I'm the Mountain West Conference commissioner, didn't they take in Oregon State and Washington State?
Not officially, but they're on the schedules. Yeah, they're working with them. Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna tell you this. I would have announced we're having big Mountain West Media Days live from Red Rocks Amphitheater in Colorado. And I would have done it from Red Rocks Amphitheater. What a background, what a setting to do it. Do something to draw attention to yourself. Vince, did you watch live from Austin welcoming the Longhorns and live from Norman welcoming the 7-time national champion, 52 conference championships, 7 Heisman Trophy winner, Boomer Sooner? And do you know what a Sooner is?
I did not watch, and no, I don't know the definition of Sooner. I can tell you the Volunteers, but not the Sooners.
Hey, did you see I love the Twitter or Twix, X, whatever, somebody put out during the Texas A&M Tennessee College World Series. Some guy said, what's a vol? What's a volunteer? And the guy said, volunteer is the reason why your school's not called Mexico A&M. I thought that was pretty damn funny. Yeah. I mean,
yeah, I love your idea on Red Rocks. I lived in Denver in the early 2000s. I mean, you talk about a beautiful venue in a beautiful area there with the Rocky Mountains in the distance. Yeah, that'd be a great spot.
Yeah,
best venue in the world.
Yeah, it is. It's incredible. That and being down on the Gulf Coast. Okay, we're going to wrap it up right now. Catching Vince Ferrara, 99.19, 99.1 The Sports Animal in Knoxville, Yancy Porter, Rebel Yell Hotline. Yancy, thank you so much for calling in on vacation. Vince, you as well. Happy 4th of July, people. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tonight on The Buddy Martin Show, 9 p.m. Eastern. We are out of here.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shop's health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought-after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal. And the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Ari Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.
So important to shop local and to buy American. For 60 years, Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company has been on the historic Collierville Square, and we strive to sell made in the USA products when available. With over 7,000 pairs of Western boots and work boots in stock for men and women, come and see our huge selection of clothing, jeans, and accessories from top brands made in the USA. Please support local business and come shop with us.